Hello, this video today is about worry. Importantly, we're going to talk about how worry typically works, and within that, that's going to help us make sense of why you might worry about some things and not others, why you might worry more now than you used to do, if that's something that's going on, or why you might worry about some things and the person next to you might worry about different things and not worry about the stuff that you worry about. Let's dive in. So, the main problem we've got straight away is it says trigger. This is the model we're going to use, and it starts with trigger. Sometimes it's really obvious when you start worrying. For example, let's say you get an email and it's that makes you worry. Like, oh, they're annoyed with me, or I've forgotten something, or whatever it might be. But sometimes it's not obvious. Sometimes you wake up worrying, or perhaps you're having a nice day and then suddenly your mind's somewhere else worrying about how things are going to go. So there isn't always an obvious trigger. But the key thing that I would say is there is always a trigger. It just might be teeny tiny. It might even just be another thought that you've had. It will make more sense when we've seen the rest of it. So the first thing that happens is down this side. Here's a principle for us to talk about. There's a common misconception that what you're supposed to be able to do as a human being is be confident and reasonable and rational all the time. That is not true. That is not what brains are built for. Your brain is not supposed to always be reasonable and rational. Your brain's first job is not to be reasonable, it's to keep you alive. And in order to do that, what this says is it is supposed to actively look out for danger. So, essentially, this is like animals. You would not survive very long if your brain wasn't very good at noticing what might happen. A couple of examples I would give you here. When you're walking along the road, if you're on the path, you don't even really have to think about don't step in the road, don't step in the road, don't step in the road. But your brain is doing that. It is going, that's dangerous, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, all the time. It's scanning for possible things that might go wrong so that it can avoid them. Another example I would give you is if you were having a guided tour through the jungle and somebody said to you, there's tigers in this jungle, you know. It would be helpful for your brain to jump to the worst conclusion when a twig snaps. What if it's a tiger? That is what brains are supposed to do. Actively look for danger so that we can avoid it. That helps keep us safe. So this is the first place that we can see where the differences might be between things you do worry about and things you don't, or why you might worry about some things and somebody else might not, is that what seems dangerous to you might not be the same as what seems dangerous to me because of your experiences. So, as an example, you're more likely to be on edge around dogs, and your brain is more likely to see dogs as dangerous if you've been bitten by a dog. You are more likely to assume that people might laugh at you and that it would be awful if you've had that experience before. You are more likely to worry about a health problem coming up if you've had experience that health problems can come up for people. No two people have had the same experiences, so no two people see the world exactly the same way. Let's talk a bit about what kind of things represent danger. So, the kinds of things your brain is actively looking for, first of all, is risk to your life. So are there any weapons or tigers around that are going to hurt us? That's not usually what we're worried about. Usually what we're worried about to do with life is health. So that's quite a common worry for people. So if you found a lump, you might jump to the conclusion, what if it's something bad? Again, that is a life-saving mechanism. Your brains are supposed to do that. You might find that happens more either if you've had experience that tells you that might happen. So let's say you know somebody that's recently been diagnosed with something really awful, or you've lost somebody, or if the consequences of you not being around are suddenly worse. So it's quite common for people to experience an upturn in their worry about their own health when they have a baby, for example, because all of a sudden it feels even more important. Resources is the second one on here. So again, to me, this makes sense if we are essentially animals. We need food and shelter. So you know that thing when somebody says to you, your boss wants to see you, and your mind suddenly jumps to, oh my word, what have I done? etc. Now, that might be about embarrassment or not wanting to have done the wrong thing, but it could also be about worrying about losing your job, worrying about your mortgage is quite a common one, worrying about, am I going to have enough food on the table? That, again, is your brain actively scanning for, is there any risk that we might have some problems here with keeping food or shelter? Brains are supposed to jump to the worst conclusion, but again, you're more likely to find that even harder, or for it to hit you even harder, if you've got reason to worry about that recently. So I don't know, let's say you know that the economy in general isn't in a brilliant shape, you might find yourself worrying about money more, totally reasonably. If you know that your company is making redundancies, you might worry more all of a sudden. Social place is the third one, which in my experience tends to be the most common one, but also the less obvious one. So a lot of the time, the things we're worrying about are stuff like being late or not getting all my work done on time, things like that. Now, that's not a risk to my life. It's probably not a risk to my resources either. So what's going on? The way that I would make sense of that is that another fundamental part of being a mammal is that we are safe as long as we're in a group. If we're not in the group, we're in danger. So essentially what that means is, as we all grow up, we all work out and find out what keeps me safe in the group. That's through things like praise, what people praise you for, what people appreciate you for, or it's maybe what people criticize you for or mock you for. So as an example, when I'm worrying, it tends to be that people don't like me, or that I've offended someone, or that I've let someone down, that kind of thing. One of the ways I make sense of that is, as I grew up, I was nice, and typically grown-ups quite liked that. So they would say, aren't you a nice boy for looking after your sister? That kind of thing. That helps me understand that I learned, I think, I am safe in this group as long as I'm nice. So that helps me understand why the idea of saying no might make me feel anxious. Somebody just asked me to do something that I know I can't do, and I might find myself worrying about it because I feel like I've got to say no, and that feels uncomfortable. For other people, it might not be about being nice. It might be more about getting things done right, and that was an important role. That's an important part of things. It might be about being responsible for other people. It might be about expectations of performance. So you might find yourself worrying about getting all your work done because it might feel like that is an expectation upon you. And that might explain why you worry about that more than somebody else might. So, next thing that happens is, if your brain has spotted danger, all that lovely stuff, that lovely physical stuff that goes on when you feel anxious starts kicking off. What that is there for is for dealing with tigers and stuff. Essentially, your body is trying to dump adrenaline into your bloodstream so that you can use your muscles more and use your brain less. You only need to see the threat and the exit and to be able to use your muscles. So some of the things that you notice happening there when you have that low level worry tends to be tension, stomach might be churning, and you might experience your heart rate or sort of tight chest, or you might sweat, those kind of things. But probably the first things you'll notice is stuff to do with your stomach and stuff to do with tension. And then the next thing happens. So your brain spotted some danger, it's pressed the alarm, everything's kicking off, and now what your mind wants to do is look for a solution. So again, if there was a tiger in the room, essentially what your brain wants to do is get rid of the tiger or leave. That's what it's looking for. And the first thing we do when we're presented with, for example, if I've found a lump or something, what is it? Is I want to find an answer. So I might go over it. Well, what if it's this? Do you think it could be this? Well, it could be that. Well, if it's that, well, you should do this. So we're looking for a solution, churning over it over and over again. But the reason it goes over and over is because every solution I think of is run through this filter. So every time I think of a solution, this part of my mind goes, yeah, but there's a problem with that. And if I say to myself, well, it's probably just this, it's probably just a lump. Yeah, but what if it's not? And before I know it, I've got loads of these going on. And I've got loads of streams of worry, loads of potential solutions, none of which are really getting me anywhere. That can be one of those things that keeps me stuck. The difference often between a worry that I can let go of and a worry that I can't is twofold. One, it might be how scary it is. It might be easier to let go of the worry, did I leave my keys at home, than it is, am I going to die? That's going to be a harder one to let go of. So that can be one reason you get caught. But the second is, the types of worries that we really get stuck on tend to be things that we feel we should be able to get a solution for, but that we actually can't. So best examples are health. So I can worry about my health, I can think about my health, I can go to a doctor, I can Google things, and I still might not have a 100% answer. So I'm stuck with it. It's not gone away and I'm still buzzing on it. Other people. So for example, if I'm worried that people don't like me and I'm thinking about, have I done this wrong? Have I done that wrong? I might get caught in a loop because it feels like I should be able to make this work. If I can just find the right thing to say to this person, then they'll be okay with me. Nope. It's not how it works. I still won't get a 100% answer. And the final one is the future. So maybe if I plan well enough or think well enough ahead, then I'll be able to make sure it all goes okay. No, there'll always be doubt. I'll always be thinking, yeah, but this could still go wrong. So that's a miserable place to be. So what I reach for is behaviours that are going to give me the certainty that I want. I want to know that this is going to work out okay, and I don't feel like I can settle until I do. So the kinds of things we might do are checking, researching, and seeking reassurance. So checking might be, if I'm worried that I've offended someone, I might reread the last messages I sent them. I might check to see if they've been on WhatsApp to see if they could come back to me. If I'm worried that I haven't done my job correctly, or I've submitted something and I'm worried that it's not quite what somebody wanted, I might check with them, I might ask them, I might again refresh my emails loads to see if they've come back to me. If I'm worried that I've not locked the front door, I'll go and check. Research. So again, if we use the health example, one of the first things we do when we're worried about our health is pop on Google and I'll read things. Or if I'm worried about something that I want to buy that I want to get right because it's a lot of money and I just want to make sure I've made the right decision, I might read a lot of reviews and spend ages researching. What I'm looking for there is certainty. I want to know this is the right decision. But of course, every time I read one review, this part kicks in again and goes, yeah, but what about the other reviews? Or yeah, but what if they've been paid off? Those kind of things. And then finally, seeking reassurance is asking someone else, do you think this is going to be okay? So again, if we take any of those examples, do you think this was all right? I might say to somebody, are you okay with me? If I'm worried that they're upset with me. And they say, yeah, we're fine. Either I won't believe them, or I'll believe them sort of until I get home. And until that same thought pops into my head again, then I'll go, yeah, but what if they were just being nice? And then it starts again. Final behaviour I'm going to add into here. There are more, but we'll stick with these ones for now. Overcompensate. So if you're worried, for example, that people don't like you, you might try and be extra nice or extra funny. If you are worried that you're not doing your job right or that your boss isn't okay with you, you might work really hard to try and overcompensate, try and solve the problem. But the problem with that, of course, is that it still doesn't make me feel 100% secure or 100% certain that everything's going to be okay. My best example, I think, is with health. If you find a lump and you go to the doctor and they say, this is what it is, it's nothing to worry about, that isn't a 100% answer. It's 70%, 90%, whatever you feel you're going to take it, but it's not 100. There's always the doubt that, yeah, but what if they're wrong? Or what if they're right about that one, but there's something else that I've missed? And that's why it's so insidious and why it kind of sticks with you. And what that means is, every time I check or research or ask for reassurance, if it works for a short period of time. And what that means is, when it creeps back in again, I've got to do the same thing again. If I'm worried that I haven't locked the front door, I get as far as my car, the worry comes back in, have I locked the front door? I've got to go back and do it again. So you find yourself doing this over and over and over and over. And that in itself starts to become a problem. It's exhausting. So there I am, trying my best to find an answer to this worry, trying to calm myself down. I'm not getting anywhere. So what I now reach for is avoidance. What we mean by avoidance is, I've tried to get rid of the tiger, can't get rid of the tiger, so I need to go. And usually that means mentally disappearing. So the most common things that we use is distraction. We'll put a few of these in. I've put phone, scrolling, or the news. I know that I'm worried about something because my phone's in my hand all the time. That is the clearest example for me, clearest sign that I am worried, because I'm trying to distract myself. While we are distracted, we don't feel a thing. While you're scrolling, while you're putting things off and just watching TV or whatever it might be, the whole point is I'm doing it because I'm burying my head in the sand and I don't feel anything while I'm doing it. And that works really well while I'm scrolling. But when I stop scrolling, A, the worries are still there, and B, I feel bad about how I've spent my time. So it works, which is why we keep doing it, but it kind of doesn't work in the long term. Other things that people use. Online shopping tends to be very distracting. Again, while I'm on it, I don't feel anything. But once I've spent all my money, I'm not happy with myself. Gambling, similarly, it's incredibly kind of addictive for that reason, because it successfully blocks everything else out while I'm doing it. Games can have that effect too. So sometimes, again, watching TV or playing games can just be pleasurable. But when we're using them like this to try and block everything out, they can become a problem, something that I feel like I have to do all the time. I don't want to be a guy that's on his phone all the time. I don't want to have to do that. That starts to generate problems in and of itself. Other ones, keep busy. So cleaning or do work. Otherwise, keep myself really busy and occupied, because again, while I'm occupied, I don't feel as anxious. But what that means is I've got to be busy every minute of the day. And that in itself is shattering. Final ones. Physical ones. So booze. So if I have a drink, it brings my anxiety down. But again, do I want to have a drink every single night? Do I want to have to rely upon that? No, it tends to cause its own problems as well. Food. So again, reaching for sugary or fatty foods while I'm eating it, it successfully dampens down the way that I feel. But afterwards I'm like, oh no, what have I done that for? I've put a question mark here because there are others. So drugs, cigarettes, loads of different things that we rely upon for exactly that. Essentially, the cycle we're caught in here with worries that we can't let go of is I am reaching for certainty and I'm trying to get rid of the way that I'm feeling, either by solving the problem or by burying my head in the sand. This is a good way into explaining and understanding that the worries we get most stuck on are worries which feel like I should be able to fix this, but actually I can't. Health, other people, and the future are big ones about that. So if I want my kids to be okay and I'm worried about that, I might talk to them about things to do. I might try and arrange their lives so that they have all the opportunity to do stuff. Does that give me a 100% confident answer that everything's going to be okay? No, I can't get to that. If I'm worried about whether or not my career is going to work out the way I want to, am I ever going to feel 100% that it's all definitely going to be okay? No. And what that means is I have to lean more and more on these things and I get really stuck. And where that eventually leads to is two places. The consequences down here. One is exhaustion. I'm absolutely shattered. Because not only is this tiring, like just feeling the way that I'm feeling is tiring, but doing these things is tiring too. And I can feel demoralised because essentially I'm trying my hardest. I'm working so hard and doing so many things to try and resolve this, to try and get rid of this worry, to try and make myself feel better, and I'm not getting anywhere. And that is where anxiety can tip over into depression. So where you might have periods of I'm really, really anxious and then I'm really, really flat. I'm really, really anxious and then I'm really, really flat. That is how that can work. There will be another video about what you can actually do about this, but this is a good starting point on Is this how it works for you? Are there any of these things that you recognise? Is there any you would add? And is there anything you recognise here about why you might be more anxious about the things you worry about rather than things that other people worry about? Or why it might make sense that you are currently worried more than you usually would be? That's the starting point. I hope it's helpful.